looking at a live, gloomy shot from the Century Plaza Hotel and Spa on Burrard Street. It is still raining out there. It's still very windy. The biggest story in the city, it is not the weather. It is Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou continuing her hearings, her court case here for the third day, I believe, in a row now. She is being... well, let's just talk to Richard Kurland. He's a immigration specialist lawyer. Tell us about this case. Make some sense of it for us.
Well, apparently, according to the Americans, a company was formed for the purpose of trading with Iran. And that's against American law and policy. Now, who owned that company? Apparently, another company.
Yep.
And this person who's in detention is the chief financial officer of that other company. The Americans connected the dots this way. They said, you're the CFO of company A, you create a company B,
yep.
Company B sold stuff to Iran we don't like, we're holding you in detention. How? Through the Extradition Act.
That's right.
Canada, U.S. signed a playbook that says if one country has some evidence, they can ask the other country to send the human being for trial. And that's what's going on here. The person's detained, and now Canada has to decide during this extradition process, will the person be allowed at liberty, outside detention, on a promise to appear for the rest of the extradition process? Sure.
So last week, Meng Wanzhou flies into Vancouver and then is detained at that time.
Yeah.
Now, would she have any idea that something like this would be possible? This all stems from some allegations that HSBC, for example, was lied to about investments in Iran, correct?
Something like that. But the point here is that she knew that there was a problem stateside. She knew that booking a flight through the United States would endanger her liberty.
And this is just a layover, I think. I don't believe she was coming here to stay.
This is it, just in transit to Mexico. But someone in Beijing dropped the ball. They forgot to tell her, oh, by the way, if you're in transit in Canada, you're exposed to the Extradition Act. Sure.
So this was probably an issue back home. I'm sure some people aren't happy within the company, whether it's the owner of the company, her father, correct, of Huawei.
Bingo. So hindsight's 20/20, and when you have $3 billion in assets, I think you can afford a private plane for a direct nonstop.
That's a good point. Yeah. So where does it go from here?
Yeah. Well, now it's pretty cut and dry. She's either released or she's not released. I think she will be released at some point.
But that's not the end of it, of course, because then we have to get to the extradition hearing, and we haven't even come to that yet.
She's got deep pockets and engaged some of the brightest legal talent in the extradition law world in Canada. And so the process can drag on for literally years. We saw that in Karl-Heinz Schreiber, Mr. Lai, and there's a case, Tursunbayev in Toronto, a guy from Kazakhstan. So what happens during the multi-year process are decisions, appeals, all sorts of things. China has reacted. We know today that China has stepped up the nab and grab game, and a tested Canadian diplomat, thankfully, a tested Canadian diplomat.
So what does that mean for you?
For me, it means it wasn't a random pickup.
Okay.
The fellow speaks Mandarin, knows the process of Chinese detention at the diplomatic level, will understand there's an end in sight and personal harm is not at stake, and the guy's probably going to monetize the experience on the speech circuit the same way our Canadian ambassador to Iran did good.
Quickly, where does this leave our Prime Minister and our government?
Prime Minister, this is a gift from heaven.
Really?
He will, during a pre-election year, play power broker between two of the largest superpowers on the planet, will promote Canadian values, charter rights, and due process, and will constantly reappear on the screen in control.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much, Rich, for coming in. You've brought some great light to this. It always seems so confusing. You know, it's not as cut and dry as, like, a burglary. Thank you so much. Coming up, Russ will have